And it's basically like one of those signs of just how everything is teetering and how the inflation is exploding. And poor people just can't get by now to pay for the gas and the insurance and the food and the clothes for their kids. And they're working 2-3 jobs on, just trying to make it. And their kids are being raised by television and by the gangster kids in the neighborhood. And it's all designed to destroy the family, to turn women into slaves of the government, to make them work, to make them pay taxes. You can just see it degenerating faster and faster. Here's a microcosm. I know the beef business. We've raised cattle since 1829 in the same area of East Texas. And I know people that are in the steakhouse business, and I know people that are in the meat packing business, and I know the people that own some of the biggest herds in the country. So I'm not a super expert like a cattleman, but I understand the business. I know how it works. That's why I told you a few years ago, get ready for your beef prices to double, triple, quadruple, which they've now done, because, let me explain this. Almost everyone is going bankrupt in the cattle business because the government has set up regulations and rules where it's basically impossible to make money. While the beef is the most expensive it's ever been because of 2 different issues. The big meat packers, there's only 3 big ones now, got together, got federal rules passed, control the inspectors, to shut down thousands of meat packing facilities that have been open in some cases over 200 years in the case of the East Coast, to shut down family-owned and small corporate chains all over the country that were providing poultry, beef, fish, you name it, using regulations. There are no more real cattle auctions that go on. If they still have the cattle auction, it's being controlled by the big 3. They get all the meat. They then fix the prices behind the scenes. So you would think that the rancher would be making record profits. No. They're going bankrupt because it's so gamed, they've got to sell it for the lowest price ever. Then it all goes up to the meat packing facilities, who are literally above the law, can have all the violations they want, you name it, do unspeakable things. The quality goes down. They can ship in meat they want, but only by the big cartels that have greased Congress and the states. And then you have the dollar being devalued, so that's why meat across the board is going up, because the eggs are gamed now. Fish is gamed now. See, people think business now is just about having the best product or the best marketing, and that's part of it. But more and more, it's just being smart enough to be able to navigate all of the gangsters in government and corporations that literally try to shut you down if you do anything. If you have a news website, if you sell supplements, if you sell films, if you sell Made in America T-shirts, if you hire a casting facility to make a few thousand belt buckles, the bureaucrats come in and try to shut it down. They don't want anybody operating in this country. That's why they've had thousands of arrests and fines across the country in what Forbes magazine called the war on lemonade stands. That's why they're having wars on farmers markets and wars on Amish and wars on people putting up their own solar power that isn't hooked into the grid. You hook up wind power across this country or solar on your own farmhouse, you're going to have inspectors showing up within a year, freaking out, wanting to tear it off your house and just hyperventilating. They're here to shut this country down. You understand? This is an Agenda 21 war. And I was talking to one of the biggest cattlemen in Texas who was going to build his facility with a state-of-the-art stainless steel. They were about to buy the property 2 years ago to then bring their premium Black Angus, one of the top breeders in the country, directly to market to sell to steakhouses across Texas and in their own steakhouse. And came to the conclusion, you're just not allowed to. That's America. That's America. Rich people can't start a business in America because you're not part of the made mafia. And that's what creates a third world country. And that's what the political parties are doing The only reason Texas is doing okay compared to all the other states is we never allowed a bunch of that mafia crap to go on here. We're falling as well. It's all happening now here. It is so sad to see our country fall. We'll give you the latest on ISIS, Ferguson, and more coming up. How Agenda 21 is regulation to shut down all competition that the globalists then exempt themselves from. You'll notice most water systems in Canada and the U.S. are now owned by European companies. And they'll come into small towns, you name it, and say, you know, you can't even have so many parts per million of arsenic in your water. Well, basically any water in the world is going to have tiny trace amounts of arsenic in it. They don't care if there's fluoride, hundreds of other deadly things they're even adding in what they call fluoride. They don't care about that. They only got that regulation passed with the lawyers so they can make towns and cities upgrade, in some cases, billions of dollars to put in new expensive systems that with all the filtration and the rest of it ends up adding more toxins back in, but then you get a waiver and it's okay. And then they give you this toxic toilet-to-tap crud that fish would die in if they were put in it. But you put fish in clean aquifer water, they would live. Oh, but you can't have aquifer water. We've got to add fluoride and chlorine to it. And we've got to put it through all these expensive filtration systems so these Dutch and British and German and French companies can literally rake us over the coals because they understand how business is done in an oligopoly, in a monopoly. They just come over, get the laws passed by the legislatures, get their specific patented filtration systems approved, and then you've got to buy it. See how that works? And if the locals won't sign on to it, well, you just send in the EPA. Oh, you've got a Range Rover that's 20 years old? We're going to send a SWAT team of 6 people to your house from Homeland Security to bust down your door. Oh, you're at a swap meet selling fake Dallas Cowboy hats? We're going to send a SWAT team from Homeland Security. See, it's all about these. Oh, our borders can be wide open. Mainstream news is reporting that ISIS is working with the drug cartels on the Texas border. That's come out of the CIA. We're going to get into that report. But none of that's a threat. You can have GMO that sterilizes the rodents that eat it. You can have glyphosate in almost every water supply that literally destroys your kidneys, feminizes men, and gives women breast cancer on record. Estrogen-based tumors. All of that is okay. But if you've got 1 part per million of arsenic in your water, well, then you can't drink it. Even though that's a low level naturally in any water supply on the earth, whether it's the ocean or Lake Superior. Just like the EPA and the FDA and the rest of them are passing thousands of pages of new regulation every year, even if Congress won't sign on to it, what do? They just say, oh, well, it's our policy to shut down our power plants. Nothing comes out of a 5th generation, they're going into the 6th generation now, coal-powered plant. Nothing but water vapor and carbon dioxide that plants live off of. Then they put off oxygen, the life cycle. Nothing comes out. Zero. With federal sensors on the top of the smokestacks, because they're not smokestacks, they're steam stacks. And the media will point cameras at those and say, look at our polluted world, look at all the smoke, look at the smog. Meanwhile, Mexico has no controls and builds power plants right across the border. And, oh, our government's happy to have the power from Mexico come in or to have our jobs sent to India or China with no controls, where black smoke and soot comes out of these totally dirty and rains down on the whole world. That's okay. See, would you rather have the coal burned here to have clean jobs and clean industry, or burned in China dirty? Well, see, Al Gore and the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and the globalists and the Dutch royalty and the British royalty, look at who owns it. They all own the major industries in China with the Communist Party. They put in power in 1949, and they want it there. So incredibly cheap, nobody can compete. And then they act like they're the ones behind the environmental movement in this country that they allowed to grow and then took over and used as a tool of oppression. I didn't mean to go off on that jag about regulations and how they operate and how they work. I want people to understand what this is really all about. When we come back, I promise, we're going to get into huge news on Ferguson. They now have contractors on the ground, ISIS.
We're on the march.
And more.